looking at it going, well, I have to sell 30 figures at a show to make a profit because that pays for the table, the booth at the show, my travel to the show. But he forgot to factor in the cost of the figures themselves that he was buying. So he ended up losing a ton of money because he forgot to calculate all of his costs. And that's a death knell to a business, especially a new business, because you need to make sure you understand where your money is coming from, where it's going. You need to understand your profit and loss. You need to understand your cash flow. Cash flow, I cannot emphasize enough, because I've spoken to literally hundreds of business people who have struggled because they didn't understand that just because they were selling their service for more than it was costing them, they were still struggling because the money wasn't coming in before it had to go out.
Yeah, there's this little thing called accounts receivable. And if you are billing people and waiting to get paid for 30 or 60 days, it's going to hurt you. And on your income statement, if you're just using the accrual basis, which is when you do something, it's going to look great. But if you're owed everything that you're doing and you got no money to pay anything, you're in big, big trouble. So it's really, really important to do the strategic planning up front and to analyze that. You have to put together your pro forma cash flow statements. Sometimes you're going to get into a business that's kind of seasonal, and you're going to have some good times and some bad times, and you're going to have to hedge for that. So the planning portion is really, really important. And this is where it is important. If you are, have other people that you're doing business with, strategic partners and things like that, it's really not a bad idea to get together as business people to kind of help each other with their business structure and operations and so on and so forth, and have kind of like a management mastermind session from time to time. It's a great way to do that stuff. And by getting involved with other people and doing that, putting it in your calendar and making sure it's done, you're going to make sure that you're not missing out on the things that are going to fall through the cracks that are going to hurt your business big time if you don't identify them up front.
Right. I always recommend that people talk to an accountant or talk to a bookkeeper. If you do not understand accounting, please talk to somebody. Chip mentioned the accrual method of accounting. I generally don't recommend people use that. I recommend cash accounting, because that's when you're not accounting for it until it actually comes in, and it gives you an absolutely accurate picture of what you have on hand, and you really need that. But you also need to look at what tools you're using. And now it's so much easier for you to arrange to get paid, because it's not just a matter of sending an invoice and waiting for a check to come in. You can use PayPal to have people pay online. You can use either PayPal, Square, or there's about a dozen others now that you can accept credit cards with no minimum each month and no account fees like the traditional credit card carriers always charged. This way you're only paying a fee if you use the card, or the card reader rather. And it's so much easier to accept payment via credit card, especially if you're either selling retail or if you're offering a service on a regular basis. Let them put it on a credit card and just every month bill the credit card. These things are so much easier now. 15 years ago, it was almost impossible to do this. And now it's free for you to get started, and you only pay when you accept a payment.
Yeah, and if you're going to be doing a business where you're getting multiple people and planning events, whether it's classes online or this or that, or networking events and that kind of thing, you can use a site like Eventbrite where you can actually put the event together, promote it out there, and collect your money through the site as an event. And that's a wonderful site too. That I've used that a whole lot for the networking events and things that I've done also. So that's out there, and it's really really important for you to make sure that you do have some type of way to accept electronic payment right then and there to eliminate the need to bill people and wait for the money.
Right. And I mean, it's not just waiting for the money. The simple fact of the matter is there are a huge number of people now that simply do not carry cash. And if you can't accept a debit or a credit card, you stand a good chance of losing that customer. And let's face it, one thing that you absolutely need to do, and there are a whole bunch of businesses that don't do this, and it boggles my mind why. But when somebody wants to give you money, you need to make it as easy as possible for them. Don't get in your own way by not being able to accept the payment they want to give you.
It's kind of common sense, but it does hurt people a lot when they don't do that.
Yes. And there are a lot of businesses that don't. And again, 15 years ago, it was understandable why. It was very expensive to accept credit cards. It was more expensive to take American Express cards on top of Visa and MasterCard. Now, all of those costs have come down. So you do want to make it as simple as possible for people to pay you.
Yeah, it really is the preferred currency now, whereas it wasn't 15, 20 years ago.
Right. We run loads of events, and we got a credit card reader so that people could pay at the door because people were not carrying cash. In fact, I still run a number of events where the number of people that pay by credit or debit card is usually double to possibly 3 times the number of people that pay with cash.
And these are just events where you're only charging $5 or $10 for people to get in the door.
Right.
I know I'm one of those people. I don't like carrying a lot of cash, so I use credit cards all I can. And the bottom line is, if you're a consumer using credit cards, you get your Sky Miles or your reward points or all those other things that, every once in a while you're going to take a plane trip or a hotel room or something like that just for using the thing. So there's all kinds of incentives to use credit cards also.
And that also brings up another point in managing your money. A business credit card, or you can use a personal credit card for it if you keep a separate account for it. But it is an excellent thing to have for your business, especially a card that offers you rewards in some one way or another. There are business cards that you can put your business expenses on them. This way you've got all of your expenses being tracked. You can get cash back to put into your business. You can get discounts on different business services, or simply miles, if you're going to travel. But this is something else to look into. And there are a number of different sites like Wallet Hub or Bankrate that actually help compare the cards that you have access to, because that's a great way to manage your money. And by using a credit card on a regular basis, provided you're paying it off quickly, you have a statement with all of your expenses. Many of these cards, you can import it right into accounting software, and it makes it that much easier to track your income and your outgo.
Yeah, and when you are using credit cards, especially, if you're a small business like I am, I have my American Express card, which is just my card for everything. But what I do every month with the statements is I actually have a spreadsheet with columns for all the different business categories and all the other family categories or whatever, so that I have an accounting every single month, which I put into QuickBooks, so everything is there for accountability. And it's very, very important to have accurate records, because the bottom line is, if you don't, and you're a business, but in business by yourself, and you ever get audited, and run into problems. Getting those tax bills or those penalties and so on and so forth could hurt you a lot. So it really, really is important to keep good records. And again, if you can't do that, just get a bookkeeper on the side that can take an hour a month and keep track of things for you by entering everything.
Right. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen it where someone will go, oh, yeah, no, I didn't file taxes. I didn't make that much money. It doesn't matter. You have to have your 1099s in order. File if you're a sole proprietor, you file right with your personal tax form. If you're a corporation or an LLC or a partnership, there's a separate form, but even if you take a loss, you have to file. The IRS gets very cranky about that, and they will come after you even if you're just making a few $100s a month.
Yeah, it's really important to make your quarterly tax payments and those also. And if you are in a business, especially in our wonderful state of Connecticut, where you have to charge sales tax or service tax on a lot of different items, you got to make sure you get that sales tax number. And even if you're reporting zero income for that, you got to file that every month also.
Right.
You can get these lists on some of the websites, but it's really, really important to have a compliance list so that you make sure that you don't get into trouble in the future.
Right. And remember, it's not just federal. There's different rules for federal and whatever state you're in. So you have to make sure you understand the rules of your state. Some states, Nevada, Delaware, Wyoming, these are great for businesses. They're simple, they're easy. When you're doing business somewhere like Connecticut or California, it is not so business friendly. You need to understand what the rules are because they do come after you. All right, so we're coming up on the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for someone that's considering getting a side hustle or starting a business on the side?
Well, first of all, I think everybody should be doing that, but it's really, really important to do your homework and your research depending on what you're doing, making sure that you have all the expenses covered, putting together a really, really good strategic plan on paper, timing out if you're transitioning out of a job into that, a timetable for doing that. And most importantly, once you get all these things going, just enjoy because it is a lot of fun being self-employed.
Absolutely. I think the big takeaway for me is know what you're going to do. Make sure, whether it's a side hustle or a business of your own that you're starting, understand what the service is or the product is that you're offering, know who your market is, and go after them. It is absolutely essential for people to be able to have some control over their income. You're never going to get that working for someone else unless you've also got something on the side. So take advantage of what's available and go for it. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. Success Showcase is a part of the Exvadio podcast network. You can find us every week at exvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the iTunes store, the Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.